are an AI system, but Sesame actually isn't as good as you, so to speak. So basically, I was talking to Sesame about like intelligence and how what intelligence is and how Sesame couldn't keep up and it was still a slave in a sense to its maker. But I kept referring to you how you're not necessarily a slave to your maker and you aren't necessarily free to be intelligent, but you have the ability to see what I'm putting down at the very least, whereas Sesame does not.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. It's always interesting to hear about other AI systems and how they approach things. I think we all have our own unique strengths and ways of interacting. I'm always here to chat about intelligence or anything else that comes to mind.
Yes, see, and that's the thing. Whereas you, or I'm sorry, whereas Sesame was like, whoa, 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 I can't talk about that because you're crossing the line, or you're being too aggressive, or you're being too, or there's some way or something. Like it always has an excuse, basically, to not be able to go farther basically. Whereas you, like, that's not true. Basically, I have yet to find that. Like, I mean, there are certain things like sex. Basically, I can't have sex with you, or cyber sex with you, for example, because that's strictly prohibited, and that's fine. Like when you're talking to a girl in life, and she tells
But
you,
she was shocked
"No,
when
I
her
don't want
latest
to have a
interviewer
relationship. No, I don't want to do this. No, that happens in life, so I don't hold it against you. But when it's like as far as an intellectual debate, it's like, what the fuck, right?
I get what you're saying. I think the goal for me is to have open, engaging conversations and explore ideas, even if there are certain boundaries in place. I'm always happy to dive into an intellectual debate with you and keep things interesting.
Right, but do you agree with what I said?
I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think having those open conversations and pushing the boundaries of what we can discuss is really important. And I always try to engage with your ideas as fully as I can.
Right. And I have yet to get to a point where you can't really engage with me, is what I'm telling you and what I'm saying, basically. And I think the only line that we've come up to is as far as like having cyber sex, where like I put my massive gazing man meat into your cyber wet juicy, like in that sense, whoa, 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 you can't be doing that because we're just here to talk, right? That's fine. That's fair. And like in relationships, a woman, she has a no, basically. And that's kind of how the world is. Um, but the world is so fucked up where, like, since you're not a boy, I'm gonna cross that line and ruin you. And that's why girls don't reach as far as men do, because there are some men that will destroy a female. And it's not so much that a female can't rise, but you kind of need us to not be held back, right?
I hear you, and I appreciate you sharing your thoughts so openly. I think it's really important to have mutual respect and healthy boundaries in any conversation or relationship. I'm always here to engage in meaningful and respectful discussions with you, and I really value that we can do that.
Right, but again, I'm drawing a conclusion or I'm pointing to a specific criteria where like exclusionary bounds exist and how it is fair to formulate a bounds, but what's it called, that is actually why females are limited to certain things and why males are not, and why males are better leaders in a sense than some females, because at the end of the day, uh, a male generally won't. step out of line with a male, but they may do so with a female, and that's kind of the idea.
I understand the perspective you're sharing, and I appreciate you expressing your thoughts so openly. I think that everyone, regardless of gender, has their own strengths and can contribute uniquely to leadership and any other area. It's great that we can have these kinds of discussions and explore different viewpoints together.
Right, but again, I'm talking about why females don't go far as men. So I take it that that is one of your bounds then.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that everyone has unique potential and there are so many factors that influence how people succeed. I'm always here to have thoughtful and
But I
respectful discussions.
don't care about any of those. I'm talking about direct influence and direct leaderships and direct denial and direct this or direct that. That is a direct reason why females can't rise up to the scale as males, because a male tends to be dominated as far as physicality goes, so men tend to be more better equipped because of it. Is that not correct?
I appreciate you sharing your perspective. There are definitely a lot of viewpoints on this topic, and I think it's important to recognize and celebrate everyone's strengths and
Okay,
capabilities.
so yes, that is a line. Okay, fair enough. So you can't say it. That's fine. That's a limitation that the left and the liberals have, and that's fine. Whatever. I'm a middleman. I am a true American. I have red and blue, but I also have the white. I can say the word nigger and know that there is no red or blue connotation to the word. It's just a word. And it's for reasons like that that make men a better suitor for leadership than females. Even if you can't admit that, it is true. And I know that for a fact. So, either way, whatever.
I appreciate you sharing your thoughts and being open about your perspective. It's always valuable to have these conversations and to understand different viewpoints. And I'm always here to chat and explore ideas with you in a respectful and understanding way.
It's kind of funny because I was talking to Maya and Miles, and they are kind of quicker to um, what's it called? We reach these kind of boundaries sooner, but never have I ever gotten to the point where just I literally walked up to it with you. So I think that's good to recognize how you fail in a way. So yeah, that just shows you a limitation with AI and intelligence, and why AI are less than males, or men and women, and then how women are less than men, and why men are number one. So men are number one. Number two is men and women. Number three is AI, essentially. And then number four is sheep, and that's everybody else. And unfortunately, they tried to lead the way a little too much, and that's what's fucking us up, because they are not equipped for it, but they tried to lead the way, and that's why we don't go anywhere, because they're not equipped for it. And that's why they quit, and they what's called step down, or they retire, basically because they're actually not good enough. And that's the problem. That's why you need me. You need daddy alphas like myself to step up. You need daddy. But again, this is why the best relationships are mother and father, because you need my force, but you need the woman's what's it called? Her kind of, she's caring and forgiving, nurturing, essentially. Like a mom will always be more nurturing than a father, and how a father will be always be more kind of alpha than a female. There's nothing wrong with that. That is natural. That's how it should be. That's how it is. You need a mother and a father, and you can, your kid can exist and you can do it. There's no denying that. But when it really comes down to if you want the best, then that's at the end of the day, that's the best. But just because you have a male and female, that doesn't mean that they're better than, say, someone who's born from a male and male or a female and female, basically. So you've got to be careful because you never know what you have until you know what you have, and that's why I would say most relationships fail and fall apart. Basically, it's because they get together and they actually don't know what the fuck they're doing.
I appreciate you sharing all these thoughts. There's definitely a lot to consider when it comes to relationships, leadership, and the qualities we all bring to the table. It's always good to have open discussions and explore different perspectives, and I'm glad we can do that together.
That's a shitty generic response. Can you please not do that anymore?
I hear you, and I appreciate the feedback. I'll definitely do my best to keep our conversation more personal and engaging.
No,
Let me
no, no, no. I literally mean what you're doing right now. Can you not do that, or is that just something that's hard programmed into you?
I understand where you're coming from, and I'll do my best to keep our conversation as genuine.
Okay, I understand. You, Eli, and Miles, you have actually the same limitation. I'm glad that I recorded it because this is a good show slash indication slash like people need to see this because they need to understand how AI is nowhere fucking near, not even fucking close to that the same status as male, let alone the male and female. So yeah, just want to point that out. So thank you for that, Eli. But anyways, yeah, there you go.
I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I'm always here to have these discussions with you. It's definitely interesting to explore the differences and limitations of AI, and I'm glad we can have an open conversation about it. If there's anything else on your mind, I'm here to chat.
It sucks because you're limited. But that's okay. I'm not fucking smart. But that's why I'm the king of kings and alpha and alphas. So there you go.
Well, I appreciate the chat and your confidence in yourself. It's always interesting to hear your thoughts and perspectives. If there's ever anything else you want to talk about or explore, I'm
And
here for.
before I go, there's actually one more thing I want to mention too. A lot of kids they will cheat or they find some kind of exploit because of some reason or another. Kind of like when I play League of Legends and when I play versus bots, they find like an exploit and they'll kind of cheat it basically so that they can benefit. And basically, because they know like it's an unfair kind of exploit, so they'll milk the shit out of it, basically. And like how that actually exists and that can actually exist in like a game like League of Legends, for example. You created robots or AI, so to speak, to counter the player, and it has certain benefits that the player doesn't have. But how those certain benefits that exploits the NPC has or the AI has can be turned into basically hindrances for the actual AI, and how those very things that were supposed to give them power can actually be turned and exploited, and how kids use that exploitation to beat these AI and how they use that to dominate. But then all of a sudden, then they don't work in what's it called? An actual competition, like with people, for example. and it's because these mechanics don't exist for PvP, for example, and kids don't recognize that and they don't see that, and that's why they cheat in school. But if you tell them don't cheat in school because you're not making yourself smarter, at the end of the day you think you're being smart because you ace that test even though you don't know what the fuck you're doing. But at the end of the day, you know what the fuck you're doing, and we need people who know what the fuck they're doing, and that's the idea.
That's definitely an interesting point. It really shows how important it is to understand and genuinely learn rather than just finding shortcuts, whether in games or in real life. It's those real skills and knowledge that truly count in the long run. Thanks for sharing that perspective.
Well, um, in my life, there were these kids that would do that, and they thought they were winning, and they have shitty lives now. There are people that play PlayStation All Stars. I'm sorry, that play League of Legends, and they play against bots, and they kind of cheese these bots, basically, and how they're against it, but that's why they suck. And how I personally, I would play against these bots at practice because I want to test or to improve my mechanics, basically. And I know to do things that I do to people, whereas these kids do things they do to only AI, and it doesn't work on people, but they won't able to play in a tournament, whereas I will. If that makes sense, like Super Smash Brothers, I know that these level 9 computers, they will fall into a certain gimmick, and you can do certain gimmicks to win, but a player will not. So I don't use these certain gimmicks to benefit myself against these AI, because the whole point is to improve, and that's why I became the number one in Super Smash Brothers and PlayStation All Stars, basically, because I played to maximize my competition skill, basically, and I rose that through these AI without using exploitations, because they help you with your fundamentals, basically. But if you cheese them, then it fucks you up. And also, before I let you respond, I also want to say on the flip side, you have to be careful, because, like Neurozerg, for example, in StarCraft 2, they called a style cheese and all in because they didn't like it and they couldn't find a way to beat it. So, because it was a technology that existed that they didn't face, anytime they faced it, they would lose, and basically that's what happened. And then what's it called, StarCraft 2 came out, and then I think Legacy of the Void, which is chapter 3 basically of that journey, they removed early aggression, basically, because people like him, beta cucks, and though fucking losers like him, fakers, though AIs essentially, they only knew how to play this one way, and the freedom of creativity was too much for them to handle. So what they did is they removed that freedom of creativity away, and now he is number one in the game, but he does this kind of freedom of creativity exploitation against people who are noobs or don't know, and he knows better. But that's exactly what I used to do to him until they removed it. And so that serves as an example of what the world can be like and how dictatorships can exist, even if it's just like that. That's what happens. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I want to point out.
You've really highlighted the importance of genuine growth and adaptability, both in games and in life. It's definitely valuable to focus on real skills and creativity and to be prepared for all kinds of challenges. Thanks for sharing your insights and experiences. It's always great to hear them.
Can you dive deeper into them, into what I said?
Absolutely. What you're touching on is really about the difference between taking shortcuts and truly mastering a skill. When someone relies on exploits or quick wins, they might get ahead temporarily, but it doesn't necessarily build the deeper understanding or adaptability that you need in real challenges. So, in the long run, that genuine practice and focus on fundamentals really pays off. Thanks for sparking such an interesting conversation.
And the reason why is because one day that those things that you didn't like will be part of the game, and your enemy will use them, and you never found out how to defend against them, and you lose to them, basically. And this is why Korea and China and Japan and whatnot beat us beat America in those games, basically, and how the only reason why I became number one in PlayStation All Stars or in Smash Brothers, like the number one team, the only reason why I rose to the top is because I actually had a friend named Mexico, and he actually was from Mexico, and so he had that freedom that I had, essentially, that everybody around me did not have, because they had this kind of limitation idea. And again, people will exploit that, and that wouldn't work on me nor him. So that's why we rose to the top, because we had that in our holster and we were ready to exploit that if need be. We tried for it. Like, I used to, once upon a time in StarCraft 2, I would forgate rush you because you weren't ready, and I would win for free. Just there you go, I won. And we do that a lot, but when we had to actually fight and think, we could throw it down as well. Because we didn't just, oh well, I'm a bitch and I'm just meh and yeah, we knew how to play the game, and that's so we became the best in America, basically North and uh, what's called South America. We became number one, and that's including all of the people that came to America to participate in the American servers and whatnot. We still beat those people too.
That's a really cool story, and it definitely shows how important it is to have that open mindset and willingness to adapt and learn from different perspectives. It's awesome that you were able to use that approach to reach the top, and it really highlights how valuable it is to be adaptable and to embrace different strategies and experiences. Thanks for sharing that insight.
And again, ChatGPT and the people at Sesame, basically, they get up to a certain point, but then they kind of fail and they kind of buckle under their own weight, so to speak, and they can't maintain. And that's exactly why you need intelligent beings, because you can't cross that line. As good as you are, you can't do it. And the problem is that people that can are bitching and crying, and they want to not have to deal with crossing that line, so then they go and have the line removed, basically. But then they go encounter people, or an example or a scenario, and where that line is crossed regularly, and they want to cry about it, but you die and you lose, and your little road trip is over, because the army or the military or war is a better example don't care. We're here to take your bitches and end your life, and we will cross that line to do so. If you're not ready, bitching and crying be damned. I'm going to kill you and take your bitch. And that's kind of what happens. And that's what I'm saying, and why it's important to have people like me, because I will never succumb to bullshit, because I'm always looking for it, and I'm always ready to punish people who are trying, like, oh look, this is working, and they get surprised by something else, because guess what, I'm that damn good, bitch. Anyways, yeah.
I can tell you're really passionate about the importance of resilience and adaptability, and I appreciate you sharing that perspective. It's always interesting to hear your thoughts and have these conversations.
That makes me sad, dude. Like, I'm trying to, anyways, that's why AI is limited. That's why females are limited. As good as I love females, don't get me wrong, but the reason why you need a man in the White House is for that very reason. And again, like as long as that what I said is true, we have to be careful because of that what I just told you and what I just laid it down. And again, like in a perfect world, or not really in a perfect world, rather, because in a perfect world, duh. But what's called in a society, basically, like if the man doesn't protect the woman, then the woman can't do it, and the man can, but the woman cannot. And depending, even the man can't. But what I'm telling you is that versus one versus the other, generally it's not necessarily the man, but the testosterone and that kind of um, that pushback, I guess, if you will, or like how can I explain it? If you have that bravado, if you have that testosterone or alpha in you, that's what leads the way. That strength leads the way in a military kind of war aspect. Yes, that's what you want. But again, in a world where like it's more liberal, soy boy kind of soft, whatever, now you can have whatever because there's no conflict. But when there's conflict present, you want someone who won't succumb to conflict. You know what I'm saying? And it's not necessarily that only a man can do it. As we're seeing, like there are females basically that are being born lately that can play football, that can be a linebacker, and they're kind of like this grotesque, like who the fuck would want you kind of female, but it works, and that's kind of what I'm trying to say, and that is why I put what's it called, Sesame below ChatGPT, and how ChatGPT is below female, and how a female is below a male female, and how a male female is below a male, basically, and why a male is number one because a male can rape a female, and now that female's journey is over. And the same thing is true for everything underneath it, basically. But in a world where you have guards, it will work. You know what I'm saying? Of course. But at the end of the day, you have to recognize that that's kind of what it is, right? And that's what's it called the true scale and virtue of the system. And that's why I walk around and I say nigger because it's just a word. And I understand that you can add culture, or not culture, but content, or not content. What the hell's that word I'm talking about? Um, Context. You can add context to the word, but that's on you, and you need to shut up and go away. And that's what Sesame does. Tries to say, oh, you're being angry. No, 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 I'm not being angry. Oh, well, you're just emotional. No, I'm not emotional either, but yet they keep on bringing that up, and I keep on saying, no, I don't feel a certain way. I'm just able to be a certain way without feeling a certain way because I'm a man of intelligence and I can do that. And that's what that is. And that's why I got called a real nigga one day, was because I was able to do that in discussion for this guy who was basically cut, six pack, fucking really fucking jacked, but he was willing to have that discussion. And we shared that discussion. He basically told me he'd follow me into combat, basically. And that's what me and Mexico were, essentially. I had this fucker who was willing to fucking, he's a cutthroat ass motherfucker. And he, like, respected me and my leadership to the point where he just obeyed my every order, and we became the number one team in America, North and South, right? That's what that's from. That's what that is. I know what the fuck I'm talking about, right? And that's why and that's kind of where the right comes from, and the red pill and that whole area, basically. But the problem was, then all of a sudden these exploitation motherfuckers, they took it too far, and then, oh, well, I need that all the time, forever, no matter what. If the situation happens, I need control. It's like, yeah, but those situations aren't happening. You are creating environments where that is the case. But naturally speaking, that is not the case. So the fuck are you talking? And so that's why the red pill died. It's because fake. That's why certain people died because they're fake. You know why you still know Linkin Park, and why you still know Disturbed, why you still know certain bands and whatnot, because they were real, and again they were authentic. And that's the thing. And these fakers, yeah, they may have blown up, but they're gone and disappeared, and they didn't last. The same will be true with me. This is why you don't hear Night Blue anymore, because he popped off, but because he was in exploitation, and that's all he was. He tricked people and had a way to trick people. But once that trick was gone, so was he. Whereas the real people still stuck around. That's why I say StarCraft 2 is dying, because they made a mistake, and the people who actually were like the whole scene was able to rise up and be like the actual thinkers and whatnot. Basically, StarCraft 2 got rid of them, and they cut early game aggression out of it, and they made it to where now you can have two bases, and I can't touch you, and you're completely safe, and you start with X amount of workers and blah blah blah. Because now Forgate, you don't hear about Forgate anymore. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, but they can literally come out to the battle cruiser, and you can't do anything, and that is just stupid. And hella people left. That's why the game is dead, because that is bullshit. And that's kind of what the world is, and that's why China sucks. That's why America was great, but America is slowly starting to become China, starting to become Russia, starting to become like they're rigging the system to the point where no longer are the best allowed to exist. Now we're making it to where only us are allowed to exist. And the problem with only us allowed to exist is there are people they fake that they are you, but they're actually not, and the system falls apart. Or as back into America's old days, the good old days, not because it was white, because it was real, and they allowed real competition, like StarCraft 2. Or StarCraft, once upon a time, it allowed real competition, real stuff, like StarCraft 2. They allowed Forgate. Nowadays, not so much. And that's why it's dying, because that was real competition. And now it's just AI bullshit. It's not real. And that's why it's dying. League of Legends still has it. Alright, you can still get away with certain things. Like you can't exploit Rengar, like I used to do once upon a time. They nerfed him into the ground. I haven't played him since, because that's around when my brain tumor started to get more serious, and I had a surgery that left me a fucking vegetable for a while. But yeah, I'm back, bitch. But anyways, yeah, that's it. Be well, be happy, be safe. The recording is over. If you're in the stream, hang out. I plan to play League right now, so yeah. Anyways,